Did you know vehicles are the only non-disease top 10 causes of death worldwide? What? Our guest is a social entrepreneur who is inspired to create an app that transforms a driver's phone into a dash cam designed to improve road safety and make mobility technology more accessible. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to find out what inspired him and how this journey has gone. So stay tuned for the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I kind of know firsthand what challenges you're facing and the high levels of uncertainty you are walking through every single day. That's why I'm so grateful that you carved out time to tune in and grab the gems from our delicious conversation today and up your founder game. You know, there's no training for this. It's a hands-on learning experience and often just in time learning experience, right? And so we have to constantly be improving our skills as founders. And some of the best ways to do that is learning from other founders. So remember this, as you do better, your startup will do better. A big yoo-hoo to the live viewers tuning in. So grateful for your presence today, and replay listeners and podcast listeners. So happy that you tuned in. I know you are going to benefit and your business will benefit from our conversation today. If you're tuning in from, well, first of all, if you're watching this from a video anywhere, please click that like button. And here's why. It helps us reach more founders, underserved founders, under-resourced founders. So it's thank you for that. And if you're tuning in from YouTube and you haven't done so already, please click on the subscribe button and the little bell there. And if you haven't done so already as well, come on over to the Startup Life Live meetup group. This is a great way to get an in-depth understanding and an alert of every new show that we post. So you get a deep dive into who the founder is, what industry they're in, and it could be that they're crawling through or figured out some things that you could really use some help with, depending on what kind of company you have. So scan the QR code or click the link in the show notes to do that. All right, so I have some Andelicious announcements for you. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of Arlen's Academy. So please hop on over there. She's always adding new content and other amazing pieces of information from which you can learn for your founder journey. And nobody understands the underserved and underestimated founder like Arlen Hamilton. And then our folks over at Scroobius. This is a phenomenal platform preparing you and preparing founders and empowering founders to create pitches that speak to investors and prepare for their next funding round or accelerator application. You know, you have to apply to those accelerators and get in. So hop on over there and use the special Startup Life Live Show promo code Andy15 to receive 15% off. And speaking of Scroobius, they're partnering with a favorite organization. They're based out of here in Boston, called the Capital Network. And wow, they know, and they've got this great event coming up, and it's all about creating a clear and enticing pitch deck and how crucial that is to any stage of your startup fundraising process. So join our Own Your Story Bootcamp to build a compelling pitch deck that can clearly and concisely communicate the most important aspects of your business and get feedback and advice from investors. Now, look, the Capital Network has great programs all the time. So if you use the Andelicious at checkout to receive, let me just pull this up right here, 50% off any of their events. Okay, so visit thecapitalnetwork.org/events to learn more. Seriously, this is a group organization that's always preparing founders to do their best, whether it's valuation, cap tables, understanding the numbers. They are always there to help you own your raise. So go check them out. All right. I'm just going to hop right on over and introduce the guest to you because he is so extraordinary and I can't wait to hear his story. What compelled him to launch his business? It's the one and only Rashid Galadanci. And so here's the scoop with Rashid. So amazing. He's the CEO and co-founder of Driver Technologies, an AI-based mobility tech company that delivers a safer driving experience. And we're going to find out what inspired him to start Driver Technologies and how it's to share the benefits of advanced vehicle technologies without barriers to access and to improve safety for everyone. But he's not just a co-founder of an insurtech company. He's also a venture partner at the Social Entrepreneurs Fund and a director at Pigeonly. All right, folks, get the clappers out. We're going to bring him into the show. Welcome, Rashid.
Nice. Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. Where are you hailing from today?
Yeah, so I'm actually based in Long Island, New York.
Yay.
My wife's originally from out here, Eastern Long Island. And we were in Brooklyn when COVID hit, and we decided we'd come out here for 3 weeks. And now it's been, almost 3 years. We've had a child. We've, built businesses out here.
Isn't that great? I tell you, COVID has a lot of silver linings for folks, Rashid, right?
Yeah.
Just amazing. Hey, April Kelly, I can't wait to see you up here a week from this Friday. Everybody, you've got to connect with April. She is launching a brand new ready-to-drink plant-based baby formula. How cool is that? She's a goddess I believe you're out of Atlanta, right, April? But it's called thesurecompany.com. Go check it out. This is a much needed product in the space now, right? Woo! So we're going to celebrate you and celebrating Brent from Ottawa. Yes, a loyal fan of the show and a wonderful reminder, Rashid, that we always need to remember our diverse team members out there. There's always room on a team for a diverse player and founder because they bring innovation like we cannot see it. When you bring neurodiverse, disabled, et cetera, to the group, LGBTQ, et cetera. So always love seeing you. And Ruth, what would we do without you? You are just, she's our community manager here, Rashid. So we just love celebrating Ruth and everything she does to help me out. Hey. All right. So let's get into your startup story because we're going to learn a lot here. And I know that based on your background, as I looked through your LinkedIn and your bio, it's clear you're a social, purpose-driven entrepreneur, right? But what called you to hop into the social enterprise investor space? Let's talk a little bit about that first. And then what compelled you to become an entrepreneur, leaving that paycheck behind, right? And hopping out into the world. Please share your story with everyone.
I only ask myself that once a day. So. Happy to dig into it.
No, we all do. We all what was I thinking?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, basically, I grew up between Nigeria and the U.S., northern Nigeria and southern New Hampshire. And one thing that I think I saw repeatedly was that these countries, both countries, had a lot of wealth, and it wasn't necessarily trickling down. And so I was always very interested in what can I do to kind of, make my community a better community, make my planet a better planet. And I was impressed by, the work that was being done in the nonprofit space, in the government space, but then also by businesses. It was very apparent to me that businesses were creating jobs for people, were creating the opportunities for education, and particularly Nigeria, school, advanced school and so forth. And so I always had this kind of, perhaps a little bit different in the late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s thing where I saw that there was a lot of good that could be done by the intersection of social and enterprise.
Right.
We didn't call it that then. Originally, I thought I was going to do kind of finance, work at a place like the World Bank.
Sure.
Management consulting. I ended up at a large microfinance institution and loved that and the work that they were doing to, empower people globally, particularly entrepreneurs. But while I was there, I noticed the for-profit, but also for good investors that were investing in our microfinance organization. And I was super impressed by what they were doing. And I thought, wow, it's really cool. You get to actually help a lot of different organizations by supporting them financially, but also with guidance and business advice and management and so forth.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's the beauty about our, well, it can be, a B Corp, but a for good. We get locked in sometimes with the indoctrination of nonprofit being the only way to actually create change.
exactly.
But when you've got some economics, right, when you can get some revenue to really put into your social change, it changes the landscape, right?
Yep. And also, regardless, you have to kind of find ways to support your organization. And one path is raising donor money, and it
Yeah.
can be very successful and great, but it can also be very painful and challenging, and you have to keep coming back year after year, et cetera. If you do have a path to generating revenue, then there's a whole different world of investors who are often willing to take a lot of risk and put a lot of capital into something over a long period of time to let your dream come to fruition, and don't necessarily need to see the impact on day one.
Right. And,
Reasonable.
and one of my favorite, and I get to be a judge for this event every year, the Hult Prize. Folks, if you want to check it out, please. It is social impact startup life at its best.
Nice.
Right. And it's all about, their prize at the end of the competition every year is $1 million.
Wow. Yeah.
And these are folks from around the world that come together in teams. They're usually part of the Hult International School of Business, and they're coming up with things that will change how we eat, how we use materials and resources, whether it's carbon footprint related or in our oceans or people, making sure the human factor is taken care of, both in being successfully, fully expressed. So I love this. And I know that you've put your money toward investing in social impact. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great experience. I was lucky enough to work both at a family office that was very focused on kind of impact and social, but also environmental outcomes. But then also this venture capital fund called the Social Entrepreneurs Fund. You can check it out at tsef.com.
Great.
And that's been a great learning experience, and opportunity to see, like you're saying, tons of different entrepreneurs putting their heart and soul and time and money.
Oh, isn't it inspirational? Because we know, especially as Americans, how the world is ruled by these large corporations that are about shareholder value. And many in the fossil fuel industry, many in areas that we just, oh no, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Then you see these social impact companies, and gosh, it'll warm your hearts, folks, and just make you have so much hope for our future, that these bright minds are coming together with brilliant solutions to really tough, hairy problems. So had you been exposed to entrepreneurship growing up, or were you one of these folks that liked to hustle product when you were younger? Or was it just being the exposure of getting to know social impact startups?
Yeah, it definitely was, and I think that that's often a common theme. My dad was quite entrepreneurial and
Oh,
had
great.
companies, and had would buy properties and renovate them and rent them out and things like that in Nigeria, and invested in a couple different companies. So I definitely saw that kind of
The movement of money,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely, just like the effort and the kind of make your own path kind of benefits, right?
Right.
And
So,
in
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in high school, I was lucky enough to kind of get into tinkering with computers and realized that people were interested in kind of computers that weren't available in the store, right? Like at the time, it was like Dell and like the gateway computers with the cow box and so forth. And so started building computers for folks at Andover, just down the road from you.
Yay.
And that kind of got the fact that that worked, and that people were interested in paying me to do something which I was doing for fun because I was a nerd, definitely,
Love that. I love anybody who can figure out how to take it, the materials, and create a nice desktop, laptop. We had a guest one time when he wanted to create his iOS version of his app, and he took his Toshiba and he did what was called a Hackintosh.
Yep.
It's just so
And the whole
creative.
necessity is the mother of invention thing. Like, I totally started building computers because I wanted a computer and couldn't afford to go buy a Dell, and I figured out that for
There
like
you go.
$200 you could get the pieces and put it together and have a working computer. It wouldn't be cutting edge, but it would
Hey,
work.
that's okay. See, that's the problem-solving mind that every founder has to have. How do I make this work even though I don't have the resources, right?
It's like literally the definition. Right?
Great. So tell us why you chose, and I'll pull up the artwork here. Why were you compelled to create an app that turned a phone into a dash cam, and you entered the what we call the insurtech industry? What was it about this that you said, oh yeah, I want to help out in this way? This is what's going to light me up.
Yeah. So basically, my whole life, I've been really passionate about car safety. My dad was in a pretty crazy car accident in Nigeria where people passed away, in the
Oh,
car that hit him. He got
I'm so sorry.
yeah, but I think that the lesson for me was that he walked away saying, I probably would have died when those people hit me, except that I was borrowing a friend's Volvo, and that this car technology of or focus on safety, changed his life and changed my life, right?
Oh my gosh.
So it always struck me growing up. I always noticed if someone had like a Saab or a Volvo, some kind of like not standard for the
Mhm.
U.S. or Nigeria car. And so at the same token, I also recognized that it wasn't fair, right? That basically the average person in Nigeria doesn't have a Volvo, let alone in the US. That kept becoming more and more true, right?
Yeah.
So today, if you can afford a Tesla or a Mercedes S-Class or a big SUV, you can basically drive into a wall and you'll probably be okay. But 99% of people don't have those cars and will not have those cars, right? It's not like something that's going to change. And so I got really excited about the autonomous car movement because I
Okay.
bought the story that everyone was going to have one by like 2016. I think that's what Elon Musk said the first time. And that they were going to be a shared asset that would be very low cost because you don't actually need to own it. You just like press a button, one comes and picks you up. Right? And the more and more I studied it, I made some investments in that space at the fund. The more and more I realized that it's a thing that's coming in a lot of different ways and forms, but it's not going to be the dream that I thought it was, where it's going to be cheap and here 6 years ago.
Right.
And so I just started to say, okay, well, if that's not going to happen, what can we do in the meantime? Like, what's realistic here? And I was sitting in a lot of Ubers in New York City and looking at the fact that drivers would have 4 different phones mounted and they're playing the game of Lyft and Uber and DoorDash and whatever. And they're telling me that they would love a dash cam because of, if they get in an accident, they want to be able to tell the story of what happened. If they get in an argument with a passenger,
Sure.
the
Yeah.
dash cam is too expensive, right? They're not thinking about getting a Tesla. They're saying the dash cam, $250 dash cam is too expensive.
Yeah.
So I just thought, oh, this is ridiculous. Look at the phone right there. Computer vision and machine learning is starting to come to the edge, so you can do safety stuff in real time on this device that you couldn't have done, 5 or 6 years ago. And so I just started talking to drivers about it and saying, hey, what if we made a thing that beeped if you were falling asleep, beeped if you were going to hit another car or pedestrian? You drive for 10 hours. It's totally reasonable that you'd be distracted for 1 minute, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we have a Nissan Murano. It's not a super expensive car, but it's not super cheap either.
Yeah.
And so this gets to your point. Yes, we have the little beep beeps that go if I, going into another lane or someone's getting close to me or somebody in front and the automatic brake thing.
Yep.
But not everybody can afford that level of safety. And I'm sorry for being so naive, everybody, but I just wasn't there. I just thought all the cars were coming with those safety features. No?
No, and it's crazy. First of all, the average car, even in the US, is 12 and a half years old, which blows my mind. Like, it is like it's the only, and people are swapping TVs every 5 minutes, right?
Right.
But cars are this huge, other than like a house, it's the most expensive thing you could buy. People rarely buy a new car or lease, even though on TV you see
How
constant.
could you think it's just happening all the time?
Exactly. The TV is really like a huge part of this. You're constantly
Mythology.
all technology, right? All brand new, and it's just not realistic. And then even when people do buy a new car, they often will not take like the top package that has a lot of this stuff. And even if you do get that, it's often years behind where it could be if it was just software because
Oh.
they can't. They have to really test everything. There's a long process, and so basically, like for example, we're constantly adding new classes to our computer vision capabilities, right? So we can see cars, buses, trucks, motorcycles, bicycles, you name it. The average car cannot, parse out all those different types of objects. So,
Wow. And I just think folks, if you have a car, I mean, we have a 2008 Honda Element, which I swear to God, I don't know what they used for the paint on that, but it looks like maybe a few minutes old. But it's, it has no safety, anything. But the Murano, I just assumed that everybody had that feature, but also you are absolutely right. The thing about our cars, and anybody knows this, if all of a sudden something isn't working, the radio's going crazy or something's happening, that's a software update that you got to take it in somewhere and have them update it. Exactly. So what I'm seeing also is the beauty of this phone is, and we'll get into the details of the app and the pricing and all of that, is that now you really are democratizing safety and fast updates, because all people have to do is just click on, I'm just going to assume it'll be clicking on an app. Yep. We'll get into the details of that, but oh my gosh. So let's find out some other details from your founder journey, because you didn't just go ahead and start this by yourself. Tell us a little bit about the co-founder relationship. How did you find this person? Did they bring tech background to the plate? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really blessed on that part of the path. I was able to connect with a friend who I'd known since I was 4, Marcus Newberry. We grew up together in New Hampshire. We both had this kind of like entrepreneurial itch. We'd stayed in touch about different ideas and projects and things like that. And he had actually worked in the space doing a lot of lending at a bank to the types of organizations that, fleets and vehicle owners that were interested in technology like this. But on the commercial side, it's even more expensive. Like, it's not just talking about a dash cam. We're talking about thousands of dollars for some sort of like truck safety device. And so when I started talking to him about this, he was like, "Oh yeah, I could sell that thing. I know lots of
his lived experience was ideal."
Perfect. And I think that's so critical because so much of that kind of founder journey is about taking a bet. Right. And you're an investor of your own, like, you're the biggest investor.
Right. Time, energy.
Time and energy. We both left, cushy, well-paying jobs to do that. And then we were joined by Michael Yacco, who's kind of our third co-founder. And he, again, very entrepreneurial. He had done like a coding boot camp, started to get really excited about technology and said, "Hey, I can help you guys with that. I may not be the person that, is going to be the CTO long term, but I can help you build this thing and get it off the ground." And he did exactly that.
Oh my gosh. And folks, I want to just take something that Rasheed just said, okay? Because as founders, we bring on friends or we bring on somebody who says, "I can help you get this far." But how self-aware was he to say, "I may not be your CTO." We bring people on, be really careful when you assign them a title. And also when you bring them on, founders, we learned this from one of our guests a while back. Remember to have those conversations, which is, you're helping us now in the startup stage, but when we get into enterprise and further along, we're going to have to bring somebody who's used to scaling at that level. So we'll just make sure they're going to train, you'll love working for them. Totally. These are the important open conversations that we must have as founders in the beginning, because we're so excited and we bring in people who are ready to, they're ready for the purpose-filled excitement of the startup, and they're not so worried about getting the pay that they normally would. But we have to be honest about our skill sets. So unless they were formerly a CTO at a startup that, was at millions a year, please remember to have these important conversations when you onboard folks, right, Rasheed?
Absolutely. I think there's this huge kind of expectation in the industry that everyone's going to look like the 2 co-founders, CEO, CTO, came out of Stanford wearing hoodies, 22 years old, and they're going to go build Facebook, right? And they're both going to be that the whole time, right? And I think someone said it really wisely to me at some point, that startups are so strange because the better you're doing, the more you give up management.
Yeah.
So basically, you become more and more specialized, and you're constantly giving up stuff. And so if you haven't had that conversation, if you haven't already talked about what are the expectations, we're like a totally different image. We're 3 people. We did a lot of stuff in partnerships, big organizations that we wouldn't have done if it had just been me and Michael, and Marcus hadn't been there. And so it's just, you're gonna carve your own path, and don't try to fit the mold, so to speak. We got to encourage investors to be open to that. too.
Absolutely. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts that you had to do to bring this technology to market. In the Startup Life Live show, we always talk about finding, well, first of all, building the MVP, minimum viable product, which can always be like a game stopper and a chokehold for many founders. How do you and the team build the MVP? How long did it take? And then let's talk about how you found that product market fit with folks.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I probably spent 2 years thinking about this idea, researching it, talking to people, basically trying to get someone to tell me that it was a bad idea so I wouldn't leave my cushy job. And I actually think that's a mistake. Like, I think people, like, totally, whoever, tons of people have said this, but like, just get it going, just do it. Put the product, try to build an MVP, even if by hook or by crook, and get it out there and get feedback from users, et cetera. When we did get to the MVP kind of stage, I did end up kind of making the first one. So I had enough of that kind of, tech
Experience, yeah.
background, right?
With quote duct tape experience there to slap something together.
And so I would encourage people to do that. Like, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, even if you know you're not going to be a technical player on the team, can you get enough experience with a Coursera course, with a boot camp, something that lets you play with ideas and iterate quickly? It's always painful to me to see people trying to raise money to like pay a firm to build their MVP, when that firm probably wants you to have way more figured out first and have already gotten testing and feedback and.
That's such good advice, Rasheed. Yeah, so often, I mean, first of all, I do love someone taking some time to really think about it, talk to enough people, do a little focus study, but you are absolutely right. You got to slap something together, and folks, you can slap. Okay. And you can go on to my Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. I'll have a link in there, and I will share one of my favorite product dev person slide deck with you. Because there's ways that you can do this on your own, or that's what YouTube is for. Okay.
Totally. And by the way, you don't even need to code. Like, I'm not saying you need to actually make the app. There's so many smart ways around if you just Google around of testing to see if someone likes an idea, right? You can make a landing page.
That's right. You can use Wix.
Exactly. Totally just fix it.
Yeah, so that is such great advice, Rasheed. And so then you pull something together, you start to get feedback, then you start to do the refinement and reiteration. And where were you going to land this initially, the product? And because, that whole product market fit, folks, there's a lot of testing out, because you do want to sort of be specific, kind of niche-y when you first start and then expand. How did that go for you, Rasheed?
Yeah, I think it just sort of naturally happened that the rideshare sharing economy industry just was so clearly looking for this kind of capability. I would start to talk to rideshare drivers, and they would immediately pitch back the product before I was even done.
Oh, yes. Right? Yes. And if you could do this, and if you could make it do that, why, I'm on board.
Exactly.
Brent is asking such a good question, and replay viewers and podcast listeners, these are things that we really always must take into consideration when we're developing anything. And his question for Rasheed is, how accessible is your app for people with disabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's certainly interesting as a driving app. We often think about, are there ways that we could help someone be a safer, more successful driver who maybe is coming to the plate with different capabilities? And we do a lot of things around not having to actually touch the app. Right? So you get in the car, you just start driving, it just automatically starts recording. You don't need to look at it. There's not like a bunch of small text. You don't need to mess with anything. It's not
excellent
a game or like a Facebook kind of thing where you need to interact with it. Just kind of does itself, does stuff itself.
That's wonderful. And folks who have tuned into the show before may recall when we talked to the founder, Rebecca, who had the eyesight challenge, right? And she had created an app so she could see the whiteboard without being like 1 milliliter away. Same thing with driving. You need these safety features in an app to keep that going. And so when you launched and you started to say, okay, the ride share is a great place for us to start. We're getting great feedback there. Now, as you start to launch and you put it out there, what did you learn from that? Because so often we get great information from folks who want our product and services, then we launch and they're like, well, what I really meant was.
Totally. Yeah. Well, first of all, I also want to throw out that if people have feedback on how to make it more accessible to folks with disabilities, I would love that. Right?
Great.
So speaking of feedback, we want all the feedback.
Excellent. You heard that, Brent.
So yeah, hit me up. It was pretty interesting. I think in the early days, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got was wanting cloud storage. So just the idea that, for example, I went in, and it's all about misconceptions, right? I went into it assuming that the average rideshare driver was low income, had a bad phone, and didn't have an unlimited data plan, and so they wouldn't want the data going to the cloud a lot, right? They would just want it on their phone. The reality is that because they're driving rideshare and their whole, livelihood depends on getting the trip request in a timely fashion and accepting it, they actually tend to have pretty good phones and unlimited data plans. And so that was a kind of interesting initial feedback. And I think that's one of our biggest value propositions today is that the average driver, if they have a hardware dash cam and something happens, they get in an accident or have an issue, they have to take out this SD card. They don't even know if it was actually recording because it might not have a screen, right? So hopefully it captured the moment, right? They take out the SD card, they go home, they plug it into a computer, they then have to launch like iMovie and learn how to edit to the part of the trip that they want. Then they have to figure out how to share it with like their boss or their insurance company or Uber or whoever.
Oh, for crying out loud. There's too many steps.
Can you imagine emailing an insurance company like a 600 megabyte video file? They can't open it.
No.
So right away we thought, okay, our huge value prop here is just making it just like a home security system or something. By the time you're home, your trip is already in the cloud. There's a little link. You can share the link with anyone. They can watch the thing. They can see what was going on. It's a totally it's so obvious in a way.
Yeah, but you don't know until you don't know. And this is why having that customer feedback is so important. And congratulations for proving that value prop. We just have to we've got to celebrate these incredible milestones. So speaking of creating a minimum viable product, Olgi is the founder of The Difference, which is a heelless shoe technology. And he's saying here, always a pleasure hearing your amazing voice, Andy. Rasheed, excellent point on not rushing to figure out the MVP. It is important to note that your experience that you go through just gets you better as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome work. Bravo. Thank you, Olgi. Olgi his family just pulled all their money and sent him to China to figure it out. And they wouldn't let him come back home until he had it all worked.
That's a good way to do it. I like that.
And then Richard O, the incredible podcast host. If anybody needs help with their podcast, Richard O will help you and make sure everything works and runs and all the buttons are pressed. And he's asking, would it be best to have a dedicated phone for the Dashcam app?
Yeah, it's a great question. It totally depends on the person. So if you're a daily commuter, you're just jumping in the car for 30 minutes to get to work, the whole value is you don't need to buy anything. Right? It's just right there on your phone. You throw it up there, it does its job. Right? If you're a full-time professional driver, either in the rideshare industry or a commercial driver, commercial truck driver, et cetera, we actually have an awesome deal where you can get from us a iPhone, an unlimited data plan. The app is preloaded on there. You get our cooling dash mount. We have a special custom-made dash mount that actually has a fan and a heat sink in it.
Oh my gosh!
12 hours. We got everything you want, and it's like $50 a month. So that is another path to work well.
So, because my next question was going to be pricing. So you wanted to democratize, and you knew that the price points of $250, even $100 was going to be a lot for folks. So when someone signs up, let's say they're not, they might be a rideshare person, but they may be someone just has to be on the road a lot for work, and they want to make sure they're tracking it properly. So in case any accidents happen, they're covered and they're staying as safe as possible. And it can be information, I assume, can go back to whoever's employing them to run around. But so how much is everybody paying, and how did you come up with that pricing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're still, learning about pricing. You probably noticed your Netflix changes price every once in a while.
Oh yeah.
Endless journey for companies. But we basically have 3 or 4 tiers. So there is a free version of it. If you just want the dash cam capability, boom, just download the app. It's free. You can use it, which is great. If you want some of the added benefits like the cloud storage, ability to share, roadside assistance, we have roadside from 100,000 tow trucks all over the country, gas discounts, things like that. Then there's the driver premium option, which currently is only $4.99 a month, so $5 a month. If you're a fleet or you own, a bunch of vehicles and you want them kind of all as part of one network, that's like $9.99 a month. And then for the great question, if you want a dedicated phone, it's about $50 a month.
Still.
Oh, I get so many people who get the phone through us and then just start using that as their phone. It's cheaper than their phone plan. Right? It's too good of a deal.
And Richard's asking, are you on Android and iOS? They sure are.
Which I actually wouldn't recommend for first-time founder, early stage companies. I would say it's a lot of extra work being on both platforms.
Yeah, but I'm going to be honest with you, Rasheed. Unless you're a white guy, with all due respect, women, people of color, anybody in the diverse world as a founder, investors are like, yeah, we're not talking to you unless you have both. Which was why I was not happy with Clubhouse. And because I knew nobody else could have gotten away with that and raised all that money. So
very Silicon Valley to be like all iOS.
Yes.
But in the whole world,
85%
uses both. It's the thing. So that's why we ended up doing both, is that we just knew.
I'm glad you did.
Particularly talking to fleet owners or insurance companies, they're going to want to be able to share this capability with all their constituents and not have to be like, well, half of you get this cool safety thing and the other half don't. Right? That's not going to work. So it's
no.
But we've done it.
And I don't like the exclusion. I'm sorry, folks. I'm about inclusivity. So if you're going to create a wow product like this driver app, I got to tell you, you want to be reaching everybody who can use it and benefit. And, we've got we've got the $4.99. I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's not $4.99 like $500 a month. No, right. $4.99, $9.90. I mean, this is very doable. Yes. It might even be good for teenagers or parents of teenagers, right?
It's one of our strongest, passionate user groups is parents who are saying, hey, you can, take the car out, but please use this thing. If you get in an accident, no one's going to believe you unless you have this. And it's nice because we have settings where, you could, a lot of parents use Life 360 and things like that, where if they want to see where their kids are, they can see it. We can have a setting where basically you can know if someone's had a sudden hard braking event or an accident, but you're not seeing their video 24/7. So kids get a lot more comfortable with parents having that kind of access.
Exactly. And parents, you don't want that information anyway. TMI. Yeah. So you launched in 2018. Today it's 2022. I think you've done a phenomenal job. Where are you at for downloads at this stage?
Thank you. Yeah, we've been downloaded by over 200,000 people in 170 countries.
Hold on, I got to get both clappers out for that. That is huge. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been almost all organic, I would say. If you just go to the App Store and search Dashcam, we come up first now, by far, most reviews, highest rating.
I know you said organic. So what do you mean by organic?
Yeah, by that I mean we've definitely done things like Facebook marketing at times to better understand different markets and who's attracted to this product, and can we actually get downloads by spending money? And the answer is yes. However, I would say the majority of our downloads have been driven by people who come to the App Store saying, I want a Dashcam app. I have no idea what's out there. It's totally crazy. There's hundreds of, apps that have one review or, 1 star or 10 reviews. Which one's the best? And so, ours bubbles up to the top, and it's been really good for us.
Hey, that is so sweet, folks. It's not easy to get your app to bubble up to the top.
No, yeah, I said it and I laughed because it was a long journey to get there, and a lot of careful work to get there.
And so, how did you and the team fund this? Did you bootstrap it? Did you do some Reg C crowdfunding? Did you, angels, VCs? Who's been helping you get to where you are today financially?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I was on the VC side for about 6 years, and I thought this will be easy, right? I know all about venture capital and how to fund companies, and I've got this broad network of investors and whatever.
I got this.
Impossible. It was impossible. Again, it took me, over 2 years to get my first check. I was, I think, asking for 25K from anybody.
Oh my God. Okay, folks, take that in. Here's Rasheed. He's been in the world. He has the social capital already. And it still took 2 years to get someone to go, all right, I'm in.
Yep. And I think, someone made a really good point about diverse founders and what leads to kind of huge disparities in the startup world. And one of those things is that typically you shouldn't have to quote unquote pitch for your first round. It's the friends and family round, right? But what if your friends and family don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to throw out at your
Are you kidding? You know
idea?
you're lending them a 20 here and there just to get some pizza. Come on. That's privilege at its highest, the
So that was
family and
interesting.
friends round.
And I think I was very lucky. Still, though, it's because of another thing I often call out to folks is that it's always beneficial if you've been able to work in different industries and build
Sure.
a network and have people trust you and understand that you're a hard worker and all this stuff. And that definitely helped us in the beginning. Kapor Capital, which is an amazing venture capital fund that's heavily focused on diverse founders.
That's right. It's KAPUR or OR.
Or
OR, KOPOR, folks. Go check them out. Follow them everywhere. They're phenomenal.
the best and also very successful. Like they invested in like the pre-seed round of Uber and things like that. Like just amazing.
Exactly. And they talk about, they understand meritocracy versus meritocracy. So
That's right. So they sit on a board that I sit on because of my VC time, and they were kind enough to connect. But even right, they don't typically do pre-seed rounds. They want to see that some ideas had some traction and starting to grow. They were able to connect me to a couple different angels, and one of them responded to my email, who is Michael Seibel, who's the CEO of Y Combinator.
are you kidding? We love Michael.
Yeah,
Again, folks, follow him on Twitter.
He's the best.
Isn't he the best?
If you're starting a company, you should just YouTube his name and just watch everything he's ever said.
Everything.
And it'll be a lot less painful too, by the way. Like he is a harsh investor. He cuts to the point. He doesn't waste time.
Right.
It's
He does not hesitate to say
on YouTube.
he doesn't hesitate to say, I have no idea what you just said. And if
Yeah,
I don't have any idea, no one else is.
That's
right?
exactly right. When I pitched him, the first thing he said was, "Your pitch is terrible." He's like, "But that doesn't matter. We can fix that."
But folks, he's a person of color, so the representation is so delicious.
It's there are probably
Important.
very few folks who have had as significant of exits as he had, selling Twitch to Amazon,
but so he said yes.
So he said yes, and he actually said, "If you can find a CTO by the end of the weekend, I'll write you your first check." And basically, I knew someone again with this kind of early stage experience thing. I think what was really good is this person was willing to get started, and we had a very clear plan of, hey, if this works out and we get to work together as co-founders, we'll have a 50-50 thing going.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, and we don't love working together, etc., here's the deal and how it's going to kind of shake out. You get a little bit of equity, you get a little bit of cash, we keep moving forward. So
now, Rasheed, you just said, you're talking like you just said this to each other. I am going to assume that was in writing with signatures.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. And interestingly, I think, when we got our real lawyers, Wilson Sonsini, like the big law firm from Silicon Valley, they were very clear with me, like, you don't need to honor that, which was interesting because we didn't go get lawyers to do this, and we chose to honor it anyway because I think it's the right thing to do. It's like what the intention was.
Absolutely. That's so important. I love that, something fierce. And folks, this is why you need your dream team has to include an attorney who is there to protect you. Do not go to any online legal docs or download things. No.
And I think a lot of lawyers are willing to do a quick consultative early stage thing, for either free or very low cost, because their hope is that you then are very successful and then they are your
100%, Rasheed. That is such an important piece of advice to make sure everybody understands. And especially some of these big firms, they have a little category for startups. because they know that out of maybe 20 or 30, they give a little quote line of credit to maybe help you with your patent, things like that, that one of you or two of you or five of you, maybe if it's a good week, year, will take off, and then they'll be able to book you at the 500, 750 an hour fee.
Totally. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. And then I would recommend just honestly, just talking to way more investors than I did. I was very like kind of selective and thought that I could convince someone of the value of my idea. And instead I should have talked to 600 people and found the 5 or 6 people who already thought that this idea was a good one before they even met me, right? They were just waiting for someone to come along and be the right person to do it. And then they would have invested much easier. So I was lucky that Michael invested, but I should have been talking to 150 Michaels, not just one.
Wow, that's excellent advice. I have not heard anybody give that advice on the show before. So, folks, I'm going to just take a little moment and just go, woohoo. That's important founder journey advice. Talk to as many people because, some of it you're going to put into the trash, right, Rasheed? But others could be really added value for your journey.
Well, and I think that like things like Shark Tank create a sense that the point is to pitch and convince someone, right? And negotiate with them and get one of you're only going to get 5 chances, right? And you try to get one of them, right? But I actually think the reality is that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there who are looking to be angel investors and put money into an idea and are excited about startups. And your job is to match make with the one that already loves your idea, not convince anybody of anything.
Perfect. I love that. And folks, I've got a phenomenal list of investor questions. That means the questions you're going to ask the investors. I also have a great list of questions you'll be asked that you'll want to get. So always reach out to me or hop on to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, /Andy Lyons, and you can grab these documents and find them there, because I really love it when founders have the right questions to ask investors, because you want to know what's your typical check size, what's the turnaround time, get some references, meaning talk to other companies they've invested in, etc. So Rasheed, when you communicate now with your investors and folks who are on your board, etc., talk a little bit about what you liked when you were a VC for communication updates and how that's been now that you're on the other side of the table.
Yeah, totally. I think a couple of things come to mind. I totally agree with what you're saying. If you can, particularly if you're an entrepreneur who hasn't come from like a venture capital background, it's often very intimidating. You may be deeply misinformed about what investors care about or what the right lingo is or what people actually do in startups and how funding works. And all of that stuff is available online. So if you just look at, Y Combinator Startup School, things like what you're doing, Andy, like this information is available and it's free. So try to do that. I was lucky because I had kind of been in that space leading up to that. And I think the things that always strike me is that investors are investing capital in you. And so what's most important is that the money story is, clear, well managed. Financial statements are easily available and summarized nicely, that you have a budget for the year and a plan, and that you really manage as a founder as if you're the investor. Every dollar you spend, why are you spending it on that, and what do you expect the outcome to be? So I think that's one of my biggest piece of advice.
That's excellent. And how often do you communicate with folks who have capital in your company? And how much did you end up raising, if you're comfortable sharing that, to do what you've done today?
It's been a long journey, but we've raised over 10 million now. So that feels like we've made a long way from that original 25K check.
So Series A, Series B?
That was our Series A was around 8 million.
Yeah. Congratulations to you and the team. Of course, you're at 200,000 downloads. You've been able to, you've created a wonderful product. You've been able to refine it along the way. And so as you're updating the product and you're keeping everybody involved, I mean, when you have that level of capital, especially Series A or B in your company, did you give some seats up on the board to the investors? And then how do they like you to communicate with them? And I bring this up because governance is something I don't ever hear anybody talk about in the startup world. And if you have a dream to do what Rasheed has done, you need to do governance with your business. And that means you stay on top of all the ink documents that you have to do annually, have your shareholder meetings, et cetera. But you have to communicate with your investors in a way that works for you, the founder, as well as the investors. What have you learned from that process, Rasheed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really evolved with the company. So early days, we had some very passionate, strategic, angel type investors who understood the space, and we would have long, phone calls on a bi-weekly, bi-monthly basis. We would share a lot of information over email, obviously the financials and everything. And I think that was really helpful in the early days. Now that we've kind of grown a bit, we have a more formal quarterly board meeting. And we always share the materials in advance. And, I always feel bad about this advice, but people often make this point. Your investors matter so much because they're with you forever.
Right.
And so even, you could have a team member that, doesn't work out with, and you guys figure out a good way to part ways amicably, but you're never going to just part ways with an investor. So it is actually really important who you choose to have as your investor. They're basically a member of your team forever, particularly if they're on the board. Even if they're a board observer, it's really important. They may not have a vote, but they're going to say stuff that's going to affect how everyone thinks about what's going on. Ideally, they're somebody who is a part of a lot of other companies, because then you're getting context. So often in a board meeting, we'll be, as a team, we're discouraged that some deal didn't happen, right? Or something isn't working out, right? And they'll say, guys, it's okay. Everyone's dealing with that, right? And it's such a nice piece of feedback. Whereas if this is the only company that they're an investor in and they're on your board, they may think, oh, how come you didn't close that deal, or how come that didn't work out? And then, of course, though, the reason I feel bad even saying this stuff is, at the end of the day, if you need the capital to run your business, it's really easy to say, oh, only pick great investors who you love, all that.
Only pick the right partner to marry.
Right. Exactly.
So easy. Not. I mean, the only time that, when you have a kid, you get what you get, right? But, you can find aligned partners. And that's why you have to sometimes go even more lean, because you can really, the high rate of companies not making it is often due to the cap table.
Sure.
Who's on it. So thank you for that outstanding advice, Rasheed. You have been on such a great journey. We've learned so much from you today. What does success look like for Driver at this point in time? Do you have an exit strategy? Where do you want to grow next?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I just love about our company is that we really feel strongly that our mission and our success as a business are completely intertwined. So what we would love to see is that when people get in their car, their default action is to mount their phone or turn on the phone that's in there and have this kind of safety capability globally. And we feel pretty confident that if we can achieve that, we can save the millions of lives that are affected by car accidents every year. And also that, there'll be somebody along the way that either through a public offering or through an acquisition wants to be a part of that. And that would be a great outcome for us and our investors.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. And I mean, I just heard a flight attendant, probably on TikTok, tell us that, no, I'm not afraid when I'm in the air. It's the ride to the airport that I'm more concerned about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And especially with all the distractions going on when we drive now, and our need to multitask and all. This is so important. I love this for you and for the team. So 2 final questions for you. When you have felt inadequate as a founder, and folks, it's never if, it's when. How, Rasheed, did you what worked for you to shift your mindset? What helped you stay strong during those moments of doubt?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. One, just really, you said it perfectly in the beginning of this call. There is no education for this, right? You learn as you go, and if you're not learning, then you're not doing the thing, right? So I think just reminding myself of that, and then 2, spending as much time as possible reading books, looking at YouTube videos, just trying to be a sponge around other people's entrepreneurial journeys. And if you do that, you quickly recognize that even the most successful people had huge disastrous moments in their journey. And someone made a nice thing where it was like, it looks like a straight line at the end, but it's actually like a ball of string is how you got there. That's for sure.
No, we have quite a list of stories on the Startup Life Live show of disasters. Just last Friday, our guest had launched Under Canvas, which was a glamping. And her first campground, everything's great. It's outside of Yellowstone. And all of a sudden, a big storm came in. And I mean, the camper, she's in with 2 young children, that almost got tipped over. She opened the door and the entire facility had been flattened. So, but remember, everybody, within every disaster is a golden seed of opportunity. So when anything goes wrong, it means you're going to shore up. It's informing you of what you need to do better, where the holes are. So she now has canvas tents that can withstand 180 mile an hour winds.
The industry leader in canvas tents. Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for that. And how has entrepreneurship served you both personally and professionally? You left the wonderful career behind that you had, and you entered into this world, territory that's so filled with uncertainty and there's no guarantee of anything. How has it served you, Rasheed?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, it's definitely very empowering and exciting to be able to build a company with people that you really like. I think that's huge and always stated, but can't be stated strongly enough that not only do you need to pick great investors, but your team is everything. That's who you spend all your time with. So that's been really exciting and a kind of a growth experience.
Yeah.
There's no growth like it, basically, from a professional perspective. But then 2, it's also really made me very empathetic and interested in and understanding of other people on that journey. And so I'm always excited to talk to new startups and people who are thinking about being entrepreneurs, because I've kind of seen it now. So.
Yeah. And I think you're going to have a similar experience as Sarah from last Friday, which is that when you get on the other side of this, you're going to be able to take the proceeds from this experience, whatever that exit looks like. You can still be part of it, of course, but then go deeper into your social impact adventures. Yes.
I would love to. Still on the investment committee at the Social Entrepreneurs Fund.
Yeah.
Just want to keep supporting folks who come from different places and have different perspectives and envision a different world. And I think you don't even necessarily have to do it yourself. It can even just be that, like the big corporates that you mentioned earlier, just them seeing that you can do something that is okay for stakeholders and also makes money.
Yes.
So
it's just everything that you're doing at Driver is so remarkable and helps folks. It saves lives. It's affordable. It's completely, as you said, democratizing car safety everywhere you guys go. So folks, be sure to go check it out. I have all the links in the show notes, but the banner's been going by at the bottom. Go to drivertechnologies.com and check it out and download your app today and stay safe.
Yeah, and reach out to us if you're interested in being a part of our journey, working with us, partnering with us, just having your school use the app for free. Reach out to us. We're happy to think about it.
That's wonderful. Any last words before I pop you in the green room and wrap up the show?
No, just thank you so much for doing this. Like I said, I think there's just a huge information gap for folks who don't grow up in Silicon Valley and who don't have an uncle in venture capital or whatever. Right. And so this kind of work that you're doing is going to change the world because it's those people that actually make a difference. And, you're actually helping them.
Right. Well, and hearing the stories and hearing your stories, folks, you can get siloed as a founder, right? And you just don't know. And then you hear someone explaining a situation that sounds just like what you are going through and look at them on the other side. Whoa, okay. It helps us be an observer. And what I'm so grateful you came on and shared your story, Rasheed. We learned so much from so many different aspects of your journey today. And I know it's going to continue to serve founders around the world for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to pop you in the green room and wrap things up. Oh my gosh, folks, we learned so much. I'm just going to pop this right back up here again. What Rasheed helped us all understand again is that you never lose when you're a founder. When you launch a business, you always benefit. If it doesn't work out the first time, you can go ahead and try it again, right? And bring so much more wealth and knowledge to the experience, or you can take what you learned and apply it to your next gig, because all these skills that you're building as a founder are transferable. So please keep going with that. So let me share with you who's coming on the show next. Is Fab Female Founder Friday and another social impact company. We're featuring We Do Solar co-founder and CEO Carolina Atspodina. She's a Ukrainian-born serial entrepreneur with over 12 years of experience in the tech industry. And We Do Solar is an EU-based green tech startup that offers smart balcony solar solutions Europe-wide, all those apartments with balconies. This enables users to lower their dependence on grid energy with solar modules that work from a normal plug. Oh my gosh, she's going to just fill us with so many great stories and information. And how do you know whenever we post a new show here on the Startup Life Live show? We're live Tuesdays and Fridays, most Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. EST. Please join the Startup Life Live meetup group so you receive an alert whenever I post a new show. Oh, please know that I am cheering you on here from Boston because I know the journey you're on, and I believe that you will figure it out. You're a problem solver. Please feel free to reach out anytime to me, to any of the guests on the show. We're here to help each other in the startup ecosystem because, again, as you do better, your business does better. We all do better because of you building your vision in the world and turning it into a reality through your hard work, dedication, consistency, and persistence. Blowing you kisses and wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. And I'll see you next time. Mwah, everyone.